Have you ever been captivated by newsreel footage of soldiers sitting on the edge of a flying helicopter, their legs dangling over the jungle? Did you ever wonder if it was pure recklessness? The truth is far more complex and compelling. The story of helicopter door gunners in Vietnam is a much more complex and often underappreciated subject. Their very existence essentially drove the entire development of the attack helicopter concept. This short video is our attempt to give these individuals the credit they're due and to offer a researched alternative to the AI-generated content on YouTube that frequently gets the details wrong. When the first American helicopters landed in Vietnam, they functioned as little more than air taxis, operated by a three-person crew, a pilot, a co-pilot, and a crew chief. Their purpose was to move equipment and troops. Think of them as cargo planes that could hover. They had no armor, no weapons, and no preparation for what was coming. The strategy was based on the belief that air mobility itself would provide the decisive edge. Get in, drop off the soldiers, and get out. The plan seemed simple. However, flying into a hot zone in an unarmed aircraft proved to be exactly as dangerous as it sounds. Nearly half of all helicopters sent to Vietnam were ultimately lost, with enemy fire being a primary cause. After watching defenseless aircraft being shot down with frightening frequency, the military leadership arrived at an unavoidable conclusion. Helicopters flying into battle needed a way to fight back. The initial solution was improvised and rudimentary. The doors were removed and a crew chief armed with an M60 machine gun was strapped in. He would fire from the open bay as the helicopter banked and maneuvered. The effectiveness of this tactic was debatable. The risk to the gunner was not, but it was an improvement over being completely defenseless. To provide cover for the opposite side, a new position was created for a dedicated door gunner. Beyond laying down fire on his flank, the gunner was also tasked with watching the main rotor and landing skids to ensure they remained clear of obstacles during landings and takeoffs in unprepared zones. He also served as a vital extra pair of hands, helping to load and unload supplies or wounded personnel, maintaining the aircraft's weapons, and providing intense suppressive fire when a situation deteriorated, which could happen at any time. While it might seem that the door gunner's job was simply to spray bullets into the jungle to the sound of rock music, the role was far more demanding. He was trained to operate as an integral part of the crew and the aircraft itself. Firing accurately from a moving platform at targets on the ground was incredibly challenging. Gunners had to constantly adjust their aim, leading or trailing their targets to compensate. This was because rounds fired from a moving helicopter retained the aircraft's forward momentum, and the target below was often also in motion. For helicopter crews, there was no such thing as a normal day. As the veterans themselves put it, 90% of the time was sheer monotony. Hours spent flying over an endless canopy of green. But during the other 10%, you would have given anything for that boredom to return. Even before considering combat, just picture it. You are suspended in the doorway of a helicopter, moving at 100 miles per hour, sometimes just feet above the treetops. And yes, people did fall out, often with fatal outcomes. However, such incidents were not common. Far more frequently, helicopters were brought down by enemy fire, mechanical failure, or what official reports would often vaguely term pilot error, a catch-all phrase that covered a multitude of accidents. The standard safety equipment was a simple lap belt, much like in a passenger car, but most gunners opted for a specialized harness instead. This harness was worn over the torso and tethered to the aircraft's floor or bulkhead. It allowed them the freedom to move around the cabin or lean out for a better angle of fire while still offering a chance of survival if they slipped or were thrown from the aircraft. The harness wasn't designed to prevent a fall outright. Its purpose was to keep you attached long enough for the crew to pull you back inside. But if the helicopter had to make a sudden evasive turn or lost control after being hit, the G-forces could eject the gunner like a projectile. The door gunner position was the least desirable on the aircraft, and for good reason. There's a popular myth that the life expectancy of a door gunner in combat was just 5 minutes. While that figure isn't statistically accurate, it powerfully conveys the reality of the role. Gunners were the most exposed crew members and were always a priority target for the enemy, who knew exactly who to shoot at first. Consequently, they suffered the highest casualty rates among helicopter crews, a fact they were all too aware of. Door gunners participated in every type of mission, but some were notorious for their danger. Medical evacuation missions, known as dust-offs, were among the most hazardous. These crews had to fly directly into active firefights to retrieve the wounded and get them out. Initially, these helicopters were marked with large red crosses and flew unarmed, under the assumption that the rules of war would protect them. But as the United States had long since moved past any notion of a clean war by using napalm, chemical agents, and strategic bombing, the other side had stopped respecting the Red Cross emblem. As a result, dust-off missions began flying with door gunners. These gunners also assisted in carrying casualties, with some jumping out under fire to retrieve injured soldiers and bring them to the helicopter. When there were more wounded than could be carried in a single trip, the crew had to make the agonizing decision of who was stable enough to wait and who needed immediate evacuation. That choice was often the difference between life and death. They performed this task over and over, flying back and forth between the battlefield and field hospitals. Rounds could tear through the helicopter's thin aluminum skin, yet door gunners stood in open doorways with no cover between them and incoming fire. Flak jackets were standard issue, but they were designed to stop shrapnel, not rifle rounds. In any case, most gunners chose not to wear them. They were excessively hot, cumbersome, and provide little more than a false sense of security. There were also ceramic armor inserts known as chicken plates, worn over the chest to stop small arms fire. The nickname alone reveals how gunners felt about them. They added significant weight, and many opted for greater speed and mobility over the questionable protection they offered. Ultimately, a door gunner's only true protection was firepower and speed. Get in, accomplish the mission, and get out as fast as possible. The level of courage required to do this job day after day, mission after mission, is difficult for a civilian to fully comprehend. This is our first shorter form video on the channel. Our small team of 3 handles all the research, writing, and narration ourselves. For now, we are focusing on military history topics that we feel are important, and we'll see where the future takes us, including whether or not we decide to show our faces on camera. If you believe this kind of content deserves support, please consider subscribing.